spanning over 55 acres. It's a destination in the desert that connects us simultaneously with visionaries of the past and conservationists of the future.
We are a living museum, and we hold almost every species of cactus and agaves known in the world.
Desert Botanical Garden. A historic garden that for 8 decades has been preserving desert plants because of the passion and promise made to future generations by a woman named Gertrude Devine Webster and her friend and plantsman, Gustav Stark. In the last 80 years, the garden has become a top destination, attracting nearly 500,000 visitors annually from around the world.
Gertrude was really a big picture thinker, and I think in some respects I just see her smiling down and seeing that the garden has become everything that she dreamed it would be.
They come to see the landmarks that are uniquely Arizona: the cactus, the succulents, the mountains, and the desert life. For many, it's something they've only seen online, in pictures, or on TV before.
When you educate 500,000 people a year, I think that's a tremendous benefit to tourism right away. And these people aren't just residents of Arizona, they're visitors. And they're from around the country and around the world.
When I'm working out on the Wildflower Trail on Wednesday, you would be surprised at how many people from Canada, from China, from Europe, from Japan are coming and just in awe of the desert plants and the desert landscape.
Ken Schutz, not an Arizona native, is responsible for overseeing the entire Desert Botanical Garden. He still remembers the first time he came to the garden from Virginia.
It felt to me like coming onto the set of a Star Trek episode. It was so otherworldly, and these plants are so majestic and different that I just stopped and kind of absorbed it, and I thought, for the first time, now I get what this place is about.
17 years later, he is still working to preserve this valley icon in the desert and protect its rich history. Which started back in 1939 by Gertrude Webster, a twice-divorced woman of considerable means. Originally from Vermont, she was an environmentalist drawn to the beauty of the Southwest, living in a city of 50,000 that was developing as fast as it could. She was witness to the thousands of people destroying desert plant life in pursuit of the American dream. In the early 1930s, Gertrude Webster met another conservationist concerned about the loss of the desert. Gustav Stark, a Swedish man born in 1871 who immigrated to the United States at the turn of the 20th century. The initial meeting sparked by Webster's need for advice caring for some cactus she brought back from a trip to Switzerland. But quickly, the pair realized their passion could be used for the purpose of developing a botanical garden. They believed so deeply in the development of a place to become a source of Arizona pride that Gertrude used her own funds, sought support from her wealthy and influential friends, lived on the grounds, and fought for the land at the state capitol, while Gustav continued to write letters to the paper urging the preservation of desert plants, gave speeches, and promoted their plan to build a garden. Right before World War II, Stark and Webster opened the doors to the garden. There was a lot working against them, but they got it done. In fact, the first formal plants of the garden were from the personal collections of the pair.
When you visit Phoenix, you will sooner or later probably enter this small adobe, the entrance to the Desert Botanical Garden. It is not a large garden, perhaps several acres in size, yet in just 30 minutes, you will see more varieties of desert plants and flowers than you would see in 30 days of driving throughout the West and Mexico.
We have some of the original plants right around Webster Conference Center, and we really protect them. We see how they've grown from just a few inches or a few feet to being stellar plants.
That original plant was a creeping devil. At the time, plants added to the collection were meticulously recorded in a leather-bound accession book. Each entry had the name of the donor or collector and the date and location of the collection, horticulture, and history, all in one leather-bound book.
The idea that 80 years ago, this woman started collecting up cactus and bringing them out to this area, which was probably Papago National Monument at the time, and for the purpose of conservation. There probably had to be others who thought that was a little crazy.
But what is truly remarkable is that those efforts are still visible at the garden today. Since 1939, this cactus has grown just feet from where it was first planted, now a massive cardone cactus collected by George Lindsay, the garden's first executive director. He collected 10 of them from Baja California when they were only about 4 feet tall. There are 6 still standing and among the most photographed plants in all of the garden.
I think from a tourism perspective, the garden has really helped educate people on what the Sonoran Desert really is. So many people come to Arizona with this perception that the desert is this bare landscape, kind of dry and ugly, filled with cactus, and then they come to the garden and they get to see the reality of what the Sonoran Desert really is.
Before her death in March of 1947, Webster made a decision that would mark her mission for future generations and create a legacy. She left her entire Arizona property to the Arizona Cactus and Native Flora Society to help fund the continuation of the garden as a private institution. But the gift came with a condition. The society had to have at least 200 members to receive the bequest. Upon hearing this, board member Luella Archer and 2 other patrons promptly purchased 75 memberships to give to friends. It took some time, but eventually $225,000 went into a trust for the garden. Collections of more than 1,000 specimens at the end of World War II has become more than 25,000 today that represent more than 4,200 taxa in more than 100 plant families. It boasts many varieties of cactus, agaves, aloes, and other flora of the Sonoran deserts and other deserts of the world, in part because of Webster's last gift to Arizona.
So what's the same is we're about preserving desert plants. What's different is the scale of the work that we do. Now there are 4.5 million of us, and in the world there is so much stress on natural habitats that what the garden focuses on, our garden now, is not just local communities, the local plants, but we've been designated by the IUCN as the headquarters for saving succulent plants around the world.
That preservation carried out through research and development that takes place behind the curtain at the garden. 2 years ago, the Hazel Hare Center for Plant Science opened. This state-of-the-art facility is where garden staff, researchers, and volunteers are at work studying and taking care of a world-class collection of desert plants. Many of these species are rare and endangered.
2 years ago, we opened our state-of-the-art horticulture center. It's climate controlled, the windows open automatically, the light is controlled. It is so fantastic, and the impact on the plants has been just stunning. Plants that never were growing are growing now. Plants that had never flowered before are flowering.
And as a complement to that new facility, dozens of scientists also conduct research and work daily with a collection of 400 rare, threatened, or endangered desert plant species. The garden maintains 52 rare species as part of the National Collection of Endangered Plants in cooperation with the Center for Plant Conservation. Additionally, the garden's seed bank stores frozen seeds and pollen of rare plants to ensure they'll grow in the future.
We have a major research department that has 26 scientists who work there. So we are a treasure, and any ways that we can reach out to the community at large to demonstrate to them what is hidden and what is apparent.
When you know what really occurs here at the garden, inside the labs where the scientists are working on plant genetics and doing really important work to understanding the biodiversity of Arizona, that's a legacy that continues, and it's not finished.
The continuation of the work is heavily dependent on help from 750 volunteers who donate tens of thousands of hours with both plants and people.
You know, we have such a variety of skill sets with people who come and volunteer here. Some have absolutely no knowledge of desert plants or the desert. They just think that the Desert Botanical Garden is a beautiful place and they want to be involved. And then we have other volunteers that have very specific training.
Archer started volunteering 11 years ago, and at 78 years old, nothing is slowing him down, certainly not the 55 acres he walks through. Some weeks volunteering up to 5 days a week as a docent, providing information and tours to garden visitors. He's also spent time in the beauty of the butterfly exhibit, but in all his years, he recalls one man who has stuck with him, who walked in seemingly confused, and when Archer asked him if he needed help, he didn't respond.
And I asked him again, can I help you? And he gestured that he was unable to hear, so he couldn't understand what I was saying. So I wrote him a note on some paper that I had on this clipboard and gave him the note and the pen, and he responded in writing. And we had absolutely the most dynamic, powerful, fulfilling tour, he and I, on that clipboard, pencil and paper back and forth, that I've ever experienced. And it gives me goosebumps to this day.
Volunteers are critical to the educational mission of the garden, but also a critical component to the operation and success of exhibitions and annual events hosted at the garden. Las Noches de las Luminarias is among the longest running and began in 1979, welcoming 600 guests to the garden at night to walk the trails and pathways, illuminated only by the glow of candlelight each and every holiday season for the last 40 years. Nearly 2 million visitors have made Las Noches de las Luminarias a part of their family's holiday traditions. It's also been the backdrop to many memorable events like engagements, weddings, parties, and birthday celebrations. Former executive director Rodney Engard was the man behind this lasting tradition. His idea? Create a southwestern holiday event that is also a means of fundraising for the garden. Still to this day, volunteers and staff are the backbone of the community's Luminaria event. More than 100 people each night literally help the garden glow for visitors from across Arizona and around the world.
Whoever thinks this is just a bunch of plants in the ground has never come to Luminarias. Walking around, it is a completely different experience even at night. You see less, but you feel more.
Over the years, it's grown into a 29-night celebration with more than 8,000 luminarias and nearly 200,000 twinkle lights lighting the trails. Add to that dozens of musical acts and interpretive performances that have been added to the event. Another long-standing tradition is the annual plant sale, with a sale each spring and fall. Visitors flock to this free event every year. It's a steep departure from the first event, a cactus show on the garden grounds in 1948, and a visible reminder today of the vision cast by Gertrude so many years ago. As the focus on community has grown at the garden, the opportunity for culturally diverse events has emerged.
It's not about welcoming the community once a year, but rather it's a year-long collaboration and a year-long invitation to the garden.
Events like Dia de los Muertos attract thousands of people from all backgrounds, providing a platform for education about Hispanic heritage, cultural diversity, and social inclusion.
I think there's a reciprocal relationship in terms of inclusion and diversity. And what I mean by that is that the Desert Botanical Garden has done a really great job of welcoming the Hispanic community, but also understanding that the Hispanic community has a predisposition toward themes of sustainability, of conservation, and that can be seen best here at the Desert Botanical Garden.
In 2008, the garden's exhibitions became a vibrant and compelling point of pride in the valley's cultural scene. That's the year when Dale Chihuly's glass sculptures drew 547,000 visitors, and a return exhibition 5 years later attracted an unprecedented 631,000 guests. Nighttime viewing became wildly popular as it provided a contrast and dramatic feel to the Chihuly works. In 2015, the garden presented its first evening-only exhibition, artist Bruce Monroe's immersive, large-scale installations, Sonoran Light, attracted 318,000 visitors and had a significant economic impact. Not only that, it reinvigorated community support of the arts in a unique setting. Desert Botanical Garden's latest blockbuster exhibition, Electric Desert, a light and sound experience by Clip Collective, opened October 12th and runs through May 12th of 2019. Cactus and desert become a living canvas in this nighttime experience. Visitors are taken on an immersive journey through the garden using light and original music. Electric Desert includes 7 locations at the garden, with each place taking on a unique experience inspired by its landscape.
When you look at it through an artist's eyes, in this case, Ricardo Rivera 3D mapping the surface of the cactus down to each individual spine. So making that as canvas on which he projects film, and then lay the color over that and the movement and the sound, it makes them come alive, almost dance.
This artistic interpretation of desert plant using light, color, and sound is attracting visitors of all ages, and it's not by accident. It's part of a broader concerted effort to attract diverse groups of varied ages through social media and online promotion. Technology colliding with desert plants in a positive way to broaden the reach and promote its message of conservation and preservation of cactus.
One of the things I see people using their technology for is when they're walking around the garden and they find that wow place, that plant that they never thought that they would see. They were just coming because they thought, well, the garden has pretty plants and it's an exciting place to be in that regard. But they find that really special place and they want to take a picture of themselves. They want that selfie to memorialize where they are, to remember what a special moment that was, and then share it with other people.
By taking selfies, adding information about something they've learned, and sharing that post on social media, garden visitors are teaching and promoting the garden's efforts, often without even realizing it, and perhaps more importantly, encouraging interest in one of the world's top 5 endangered species, cactus.
I guess what worries me is that someday maybe many of the species we hold will only live in the garden. They will be gone in the wild. So that sense of loss of biodiversity and extinction in the wild is something that worries me.
To combat that, a concerted effort is being focused on educating younger generations, showing and sharing with them that it's not a problem the garden alone can solve. It involves families teaching children to live differently and protect the habitats so that rare plants can be reintroduced in the way they should be, in nature. Tens of thousands of school children visit the garden. Still, for families, there's an unseen barrier that can only be addressed through plans already mapped out for a family and children's garden to be added within the next 5 to 10 years.
A lot of people are hesitant to bring their children here because everything is feels a little dangerous or scary. So when we have specific exhibits and programs for children and family where they can run around and be independent and explore nature and conservation, that is going to be a big change for the garden.
As children grow up with technological immersion and less time playing and learning outside, studies point to yet another concern in younger generations.
I think technology is great, and I just think technology should exist alongside the natural world, not replace it. And as kids grow up and, for safety reasons, stay in their house and play with their technology games and don't go out back or don't go into the woods or the desert just to explore and play as I did when I was a kid, that lack of exposure and introduction creates something that's known as nature deficit disorder.
There's a lot of writing nationally about children who are nature deprived and the impact that has, and that they don't know where their food comes from or the role that biodiversity plays in their lives.
The Desert Botanical Garden is committed to the next generation of visitors. They look forward to breaking ground on the Myrna H. Berger Children and Family Garden, which will encompass 3 acres for social play, creativity, discovery, and hands-on experiences. The garden's mission is rooted in the belief that children who experience nature with a trusted adult develop lifelong earth stewardship and environmental sensitivity. Adding to that, this future garden will provide opportunities for imagination, self-expression, and movement in an attempt to help provide opportunities for development of healthy, engaged, environmentally literate children and families. A new backdrop to experience nature in a way that hasn't been provided in Phoenix before.
I think we have a real opportunity here at the garden by offering experiences that young people will enjoy, that will attract them here for the purpose of participating in the experience. And while we're here, we can mix together, I don't know if you'd call it edutainment, but give them some information that will help drive their passion so that they can take their energy to work it forward and do good things environmentally.
3 key areas of focus have emerged and will drive the garden through the next decade. Economic sustainability. It might surprise you to know that the garden's total operating budget is funded almost exclusively from charitable contributions and from the revenues earned from garden admissions, the plant sale, and special events. And it's always been so. Over time, thousands of generous donors have displayed that same spirit of philanthropy expressed by Gertrude Webster and Gustav Stark. Thanks to their contributions of time, talent, and funds, the garden is fulfilling its commitment to plant conservation and to be a compelling attraction for the community. Continued partnerships with interested individuals, companies, foundations, and civic groups will allow the garden to flourish into the future, expressing a commitment to respect, understand, and protect our unique landscape for future generations while fostering community connections with the beauty and wonder of desert plants. Next, social sustainability. How to reflect the community and reach out to pockets of people who may not know about the garden and find out what's important to them. And lastly, environmental sustainability. How to build on the research to ensure the survival of cactuses and succulents and continue to promote the importance of biodiversity.
I think it's very important to continue investing and to continue growing in the gardens because of how easy it is to get farther away from nature. It is becoming easier to get lost in our screens, and it is very important for next generations to really see the beauty of our ecosystem, preserve it, and really find the joy in it.
The same joy and passion for plants that started 80 years ago. Now it's our time in history to continue their legacy by helping to save the cactus and share the beauty of the desert and appreciation for all it has to offer. Because that's what Gertrude would have wanted.